like to call to order let's see, at 6:04, I'd like to call the order of the regular meeting of the December 6th, 2023 Fitchburg Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission has 7 members. Members are citizens residing in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. The commission is appointed by the City Council and serves on a volunteer basis. The commission collaborates with the residents, businesses, and organizations to facilitate compliance with the 8 interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Fitchburg Wetlands Bylaw. Meetings of this commission are subject to and abide by the open meeting law. If you would like more information about any of these regulations, please ask a commissioner, our agent, or environmental consultant. We'd like to thank you for your commitment to the conservation of our natural resources. And thank you for your patience as we navigate this hybrid meeting. The commission requests that folks wishing to speak approach the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, and state your name and address. If you would like to speak and you're joining us on Zoom, please use the raise your hand function so that we know that someone's there with a question. Be advised, this public meeting is being live streamed and recorded by Fitchburg Access Television. If a member of the in-person audience is recording this meeting, this is your opportunity to identify yourself for the public record. Now we'll call the roll. Commissioner Christian.
Here.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Helene is not present. Commissioner Jacobs.
Here.
Commissioner Tantin-Arawat.
Here.
And Commissioner Satterfield in attendance. Now let's take a moment to pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's see. Moving forward, with the abutter notification cards. So we're not going to open a hearing if we don't have the abutter notification cards and all fees paid in full. Do we have the abutter notification cards for and all fees paid in full for the notice of intent Oak Hill Country Club?
Yes.
Notice of intent the Normandin Group?
Yes.
Notice of intent Ridemore Heavy Truck Parts?
Yes.
Notice of intent City of Leominster Water Main Replacement?
Yes.
Notice of intent Graz Engineering 182 Sheldon Road?
Yes.
Notice of intent Graz Engineering 196 Sheldon Road?
Yes.
City of Fitchburg combined CSOs 032045083 separation rehabilitation project.
The applicant is here. Do you have the cards with you, or?
Yes, I believe they'll be coming, yes.
Yep.
And they would be exempt from fees.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, for Oak Hill Country Club, as I mentioned to everybody, the applicant has requested a continuance. The peer review has not been completed, and we're waiting for that to move forward. So I'm going to open it, and then I'm going to request a continuance. We're going to get a motion on that, and then we're going to continue.
Is there any time frame that this has to be done by? Or this can just go on forever?
No, it's not going to go on forever. The applicant requested a continuance because the peer review hasn't been completed. Forever is a long time.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I just said it has been a long time already.
Ma'am, the first meeting we had, I explained to the group that this will take a very long time, and that's because it needs to be done correctly. So now, moving forward, if you're talking, you're out of order. Okay. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, Oak Hill Country Club, Solar LLC, Oak Hill Country Club, Shea Street. There was a request to continue as the peer review was incomplete. Can I have a motion?
Motion to continue the hearing to January 4th, 3rd, 2024.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Sarahfield, aye. Motion passes, and we can move on. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation...
Hold on one second.
Commissioners, will give people a chance to leave so we can hear everything.
The wheels of justice move slow. Regarding Tracy's comment, I thought you were the bitch.
I know. I'm training her well.
No, that's appropriate. Everything.
We'll get Mr. Lambert out of here, Officer Lambert.
They'll figure it out. They're not coming in. They're not coming in here to play games. It's business.
Yep, January 3rd.
What are we waiting for?
Okay. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, the Normandin Group, construction of single-family home, 39 Will Thompson Way. And do we have anyone here to speak on that? Did we ever get a deed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you state your name? Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Collette. I'm with Haley Ward, representing the Normandin Group. This is 39 Will Thompson Way. And so we revised the plan based off of the comments that we had gotten from the site walk. So we rotated and moved the house to try and get that corner of the garage as far away from the 20-foot buffer as we could. And so with the updated house location, we have about 12 feet of room, and I believe there was about 8 feet previously. We also confirmed with the applicant that there will be a deck on the house, and so we included that on the site plan. Also, newly on the revised plan, we're calling out for a no disturb sign every 25 feet along the 20-foot no disturb buffer. This will be on 4-inch by 4-inch pressure-treated posts. And lastly, we have called out for a stormwater basin as opposed to the rain garden, which was previously proposed.
Okay, let's open the, did you say Mr. Klepp?
Colette.
Colette, okay. Let's open the floor for public comment. Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. Thank you. Hearing none from the public, let's turn to the commission. Do we have any commissioners with questions for Mr. Collette?
I would, not to you. It was my suggestion that pressure-treated post, or posts in general, would hold the placard for no disturb. In the plan, the original plan and discussion on site was about the boulders would be the limit of work. My feeling, and that's all it was, my opinion, that boulders were kind of a lazy man's approach. Leave them on site because they're already there. You don't have to get rid of them. And they look just like that. You felt like not taking them off site and leaving them there. I just thought it was inappropriate for a first-class landscape job. Incidental boulders. I don't know if the pressure treated is any better, but the placards will be distinguishable. I don't know if they had planned on it making their own or drawing from a city's supply.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know if the city of Fitchburg has.
If we were to do a little investigation, we should have placards on file for this purpose. And there's no, if we standardize it, we standardize it. And if pressure treaters is a standard, carry that standard forward for other projects as well. That's all. And that's to the CONSCOM. He'll do what we ask him to do, I'm sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Donnelly. Commissioner Jacobs?
Mr. Collette, thank you very much for taking our comments that we made on the site walk and referring them to the plan. So we appreciate that very much. As we get into proposing conditions for this project, as we've done in the past, I would like to propose that we add as a perpetual condition that the stormwater basin and the spillway shall be maintained as originally designed, and we'll put that in our order of conditions. It shall be the responsibility of any homeowner as each follows. And you've already taken care of but I'd like to memorialize it in the order of condition that the 20-foot no disturb buffer shall be memorialized by permanent markers stating resource area no disturb or similar, so that sequential owners will see that those markers need to stay there. So adding 2 perpetual conditions as we go forward. Thank you very much.
If I may,
Commissioner Donnelly?
the detention basin, does it deserve the same protection as the buffer zone and the wetland? It's a likely spot for fill over time. I'm not asking you. And going every project, we have to consider it. We might as well start tonight. Is that overkill? Is it appropriate? Inappropriate?
We did it on 29. There are, in the order of conditions for 29 Will Thompson Way, there are markers to be placed in and around the detention basin that was put up on 29. So we could include that in the markers.
It's not burdensome. The cost of 4x4s and installation, it doesn't break the bank, and I think it'll slow filling. May not stop it, but it'll slow it down. So could the comments reflect that the basin as well be delineated as no disturb?
Certainly.
No fill, no.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Well, we've seen a number of situations where the basins are turned into gardens and they're filled with grass clippings and,
It's a natural phenomenon. That's what people do. No problem.
So if I will modify then my suggestion for a perpetual condition to be added that beyond the stormwater basin and spillway being maintained as originally designed, it should be permanently demarcated or something so that that would indicate that that is a permanent area, and that should be in part of like a stormwater maintenance plan that will be submitted to the homeowner also.
did we get a file number for this one?
For what?
A file number?
In September?
What-
When you guys were on the sidewalk?
It's worth noting that the homeowner will probably, they may read it once, and it may be one of the spouse, it may be one of them may read it once, and it'll probably be never seen again. Therefore, those placards are pretty, kind of important. Okay?
And I'm sorry, I just want to ask Commissioner Jacobs, did you mean 15 Will Thompson Way? I don't have a 29 Will Thompson Way. Is that the other?
It's the other, it's House Lot 2, this is House Lot 3.
Okay.
And I was
I
thinking
think
that was
it's
29.
15, just
but
for
it's
the record.
15? Okay,
Yes.
thank you, yes.
Oh, Nick has a.
Oh. Hi, Nick. Commissioner Erickson?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to add, with our city stormwater regulations, there's a number of documents that need to be submitted, including stormwater analyses, operation and maintenance plan for the detention basin, and that operation and maintenance plan actually needs to be recorded on the deed of the property. I agree with Commissioner Donnelly's assessment. Typically, homeowners are probably not going to read that document more than once and keep up with what's outlined in the document, but at least that gives the city a mechanism to look back in 20, 30 years when, someone's trying to figure out what was approved when. It gives the city a mechanism to look back and see what was approved and what that property owner should have been doing over time to keep up with that detention basin. So if there's any question as to how it originally was intended to function or what maintenance was required, it's there and it's searchable through the Registry of Deeds. That's all I had to add for this one. Thank you.
Madam Chair, do we delay approval of an order of conditions until that's met, or contingent on that being met?
Commissioner Erickson, so there's documents that are pending. You haven't received documents?
I have not checked into the documents. I honestly haven't had time to review this myself. I can check in with Jeff Hillman. He may have reviewed this one. I personally have not.
Okay.
But I would just recommend that if that O&M plan has not been filed on the deed of the property, then it should be included as a condition in the order of conditions.
Mr. Collette, have those documents been filed?
I do not believe they have been, but they certainly can. Relatively soon.
We'll add it in as a condition then, if that, Nick, that will work for you, right?
Yep, that's perfectly fine. And then we'll just need to make sure to follow up and make sure the applicant follows through with that. But I have no reason to believe they wouldn't.
Okay.
So if those documents aren't submitted, you'll be in violation of your order of conditions, Mr. Collette.
All right.
You wouldn't want that.
Nope, they'll be submitted.
Okay, so hearing no more from the public, were you able to document those two new conditions?
Yes.
Okay, hearing no more, the chair closes the hearing for notice of intent, request for determination of do we have a motion on to?
Motion to issue an order of conditions on
Can we
39 Will Thompson Way.
clarify before we make a motion on what we're making a motion on?
Thank you, Joyce.
Just to make sure that that's for the record.
Yes,
So
please.
this is 39 Will Thompson Way, DEP number 1550734. Parcel number is 88R24-2. And the plan that we're approving today is labeled last revised 11/27/23. That's on the floor for a motion. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Call the roll. All in favor, Commissioner Christian,
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Tantinarwat,
Aye.
Commissioner Sarahfield, aye. Motion passes. Pending the submission of that documentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Collette.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And Commissioner Jacobs, thank you for that
You're welcome.
addition. Okay, so under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent Ridemore Heavy Truck Parts, INC, concrete pad, 150 Benson Street. Speaking to the notice of intent, we have
Good evening, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for having me back this evening. We presented this project to you last month. At the time, we didn't have a DEP file number assigned. We've since received a file number, and we also received a comment from DEP that I'll summarize. They wanted to see the stormwater management standards met to the maximum extent practical for the site, as it is a redevelopment. As we discussed last time, the entire area has been disturbed for quite some time, a long time. Was paved essentially with pavement millings in an area that they use an excavator to process scrap metal, which is really what's left of the vehicles after they strip off all of the good parts that they could resell. And so what we're proposing is to take out those millings and replace it with a poured concrete pad, which we think in itself is an improvement, because instead of processing the scrap on millings that can be broken up by the force of the excavator and whatever they're crunching up, an 18-inch thick concrete pad is much more stable for that type of operation. We did speak with the DEP reviewer this morning, kind of gave him the whole backstory of the site, the enforcement order, the work that was done to correct that. And so what we did is we changed the viewport of the plan sheet so that he could see the area that was fixed under the enforcement order, and the riprap, the infiltration swale that was added. So that was the major change to the plan, is just shifting the view so he could see that area. We also added an erosion control barrier, although this is already boxed in with a concrete wall, that concrete block wall that really parallels the stream, and another one that comes 90 degrees to it. It's kind of a belt and suspenders. We added an erosion control line below that. We also added a statement about illicit discharges, just certifying that, to our knowledge, there's no known or designed non-stormwater discharges that are or will be connected to the existing best management practices on the property that would convey pollutants directly to the groundwater or surface water. So there's nothing that we know of, like, for example, a floor drain inside the building that doesn't go through an oil water separator that would just discharge directly. It's important to note that before whatever's being scrapped, whether it's a truck or a school bus, before that makes it to this area, it's been drained of all its fluids, all the good parts have been stripped off of it, and so typically it's just the chassis or the body or an axle that's not good for resale that would be processed and separated into different classifications or categories of scrap metal. We added an operation and maintenance plan that would go along with the P-stone diaphragm, and we also added an O&M schedule so that that can be inspected, so that way that filtration diaphragm that was installed is properly maintained and functions, because the runoff from this pad does run kind of right to left on the plan and hooks around. If you recall, some of us that went on the site, you can remember that that kind of grades down to where that area is, so it's all making it to there. So hopefully those changes that we made satisfy the commission, and like I said, I think just pouring the pad is an improvement in itself, right? Rather than working on a softer surface with an excavator crunching up metal and sorting metal, now you're on a reinforced concrete pad, so you're adding containment just with that itself. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Let's open the floor for public comment. Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to discuss this? Hearing none from the public, let's turn to the commission. Are there any commissioners with questions or comments?
Couple.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Is this a change of use?
No, this is a long, ongoing historical use at the site, even prior to Mr. Pomalu owning the site.
Okay.
So that was also one of the things that we discussed with the reviewer is really in legality, he could continue this use operating in the current conditions, which is over the regrind pavement. And so he's really looking to do the right thing, both for his operation, because it gives him cleaner scrap, honestly, right? It's not getting any dirt on it, but it's also better environmentally to be working off of that pad.
A question. So the longer the material, if there's any contamination in the material that comes in, that's what we care about, right? The longer it's on site, the more time it has to travel. And so what I know about scrap metal facility, at one time, you could stockpile it for a week, and the truck could come by and pick it up, and if there was no money, if the price wasn't up, it sat there.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the price is up there, so it goes out every day. Every day it moves. There's no guarantee, but can you tell me how long does that material,
Yeah,
probably
so-
dictate on the price of metal. How long does it stick around?
I think an important designation is that this isn't a scrap yard like some of the other ones in town where people would take any kind of scrap metal in there and get paid and drop it off.
Yeah.
Primarily, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but primarily, Ridemore's business is to buy wrecked heavy vehicles, tractor trailers, school buses, whatever kind of heavy commercial vehicle. They bring it to their yard, empty it of fuel, empty it of oil, empty it of antifreeze, and then they strip the good parts off, motors, transmissions, rear ends, et cetera, right? Usable truck parts that they can resell, and whatever is not usable on the resale market is what gets sorted and scrapped. So the cab might be aluminum, the frame would be steel. So they're really sorting that kind of stuff out.
It's a salvage yard, and sometimes the salvage is scrap metal, and a good portion of the salvage is retail parts.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Patrick, the conversation that you had with the Mass DEP reviewer today, they were positive and accepted your responses and your plan changes? They were
Yes.
satisfied with that response?
They were, and they said obviously it's their comments are on any application are meant to be guidance for the commission, and so that's why they brought it up in their review of this and left it for us to have this discussion on whether or not our responses are satisfactory to the commission members.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tantinaro-One?
Just a question on the operation and maintenance schedule. So it says that the contractor is required to do that 6-month inspection, who checks in after that, or who checks that log to make sure that they were there? Is it the owner?
Yeah, so it actually, it states it on the page prior that once its construction's done, it transfers to the property owner.
The property owner does the inspection every 6 months?
Yep. And Mr. Pomeroy, as I know, we had our issue to deal with last year, but even prior to that, he's a good steward of the site and the adjacent brook. Multiple times he had gone down in, cleaned out the stream, loaded up dumpsters. So he really is trying, granted his operation is what it is, and it's next to a resource area, but he's trying to do that in the best possible way. And so I'm confident in him as a landowner and a client that he's going to follow through, making sure what he's invested money in building, the riprap slope and the P-stone diaphragm, are there and serving a purpose long-term.
Okay. Hearing no more from the commission, do we have a motion? Can we have a motion to,
Motion to accept the plan as submitted? Is that a question? Yes, I make it.
thank you, and a second?
Second.
Do you want to go ahead and,
Yes, and I'd like to review what this vote is pertaining to 150 Benson Street, Mass DEP number 1550736. This parcel ID is 183150, and we're now approving revised plan stamped 12/6/23.
all right, we have a motion on the table. I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tantinarewat?
Aye.
Commissioner Sarahfield, aye. So the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. McCarty.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. McCarty, moving forward, the documentation needs to be submitted 7 days in advance.
Understood.
Thank you.
Justin had to go and have a baby, and we're still playing catch-up. So
Can you pull the
I
baby
promise
card?
next time we'll be more prompt with the
I'll
response.
let you slide on the baby card.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening. All right. Is Lemonster here?
Lemonster requested a continuance.
Okay,
So
so,
we can answer the comments from Mass E DEP.
okay, so I'm going to open this one, and then we're going to continue. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, City of Lemonster water main replacement, cross-country Maine. Can I have the applicant has requested a continuance. Can I have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue?
And a second?
Second.
Okay. I'll call the roll.
What's this?
The Leominster DPW, the water main.
Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tantinarewat?
Aye.
Commissioner Sarahfield? Aye. Continue that till next, the January meeting. Thank you.
All right.
I don't see grass.
They're online.
Is that
But we
Devon?
cannot open 196.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that critical update. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission opened the hearing for notice of intent, Graz Engineering LLC, resubmittal, construction of single-family home, 182 Sheldon Road. And who do we have speaking to the notice of intent? And will you let us know how you'll be meeting the performance standards for this project? Oh, there you, okay. Mr. Grasowitz?
He has to unmute himself. He has to unmute himself.
Mr. Grasowitz, you're muted.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul Grazowitz, Graz Engineering. And the applicant and owner on this lot is Aaron Sepola. The commission, I know, has been out to the site. There's 2 houses in this area. This NOI is for Lot 2. And basically, there were changes made to the plans, to the site, changing of lot lines to accommodate things like the septic in the house and stormwater. And there was a lot of fill brought onto the site. We originally had, houses that were going to have septics that pumped up to the leach field up by the road. And the owners of both of these lots, the builders, they brought in a lot of fill and raised things up so that these then became gravity systems. And following the commission noticed the differences in the plan and requested that new NOIs be filed because the orders for the original notice of intents said that no changes can be made without refiling. So the commission had asked for Lot 1 to be filed, and there were actually fines imposed on that. Lot 2, we just decided to file it at the same time because it's the same situation. We did get file numbers. 182 is 155-0739. DEP's comment on this one is that, well, I believe they initially had other comments that we addressed, and they said that the commission may want to consider a condition for assurance that the basin's drained within 72 hours. So that was their recommendation on this number 182, which is Lot 2. Now, another thing that came out of DEP's review, initially we had, when you do the stormwater, you have the option, you have to meet the 2-year pre and post development peak rates of runoff and the 10-year. In 100, you have an option of showing that there's no impact downstream. So we submitted calculations in the hydrology to show that there was no negative impacts in the 100-year storm. And DEP felt that they would just prefer to have us go ahead and provide full attenuation of the 100-year storm. So as a result of that, the plan that was filed with the notice of intent that you have shows an enlargement of the stormwater basin on the back of number 182. So we've got to increase the size of that basin in order to comply with DEP's requirement on the 100-year storm. Right, so it's you will see in the so 182 is the basin on the right, the larger one, and you'll notice that there's a kind of a small oval at the bottom of the basin, and then we have lines extending that lower oval out into the woods. So basically, there's going to have to be some more tree cutting done out there, and that basin's going to have to go another 30 feet or so. This house is still in the ownership of the builder, so that's one good aspect of this situation. Yeah, so the actual basin enlargement, that would be from the existing toe of slope on the berm to the proposed toe of slope on the berm is about 28 to 30 feet further back. still with the same setback from the wetlands. We've provided the, with notice of intent, stormwater calculations for quantities, qualities, inspection and maintenance, et cetera. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm just looking at some plans.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Grazowitz.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we, let's open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak in favor of or against this hearing or would like to request more information? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Dufour, 181 Sheldon Road. I live across the street. The few concerns that we have is the runoff that they're talking about, which is on both sides of the property, is actually backing up onto our land, which we have a culvert on the side of our land, but it's backing up, and we've had to, our lawn doesn't drain like it used to. There is across this, in the street in front of the houses, there is a puddle in the road that has never been there across the road, and I feel part of that is from the first house that they built. It is a downhill slope all the way to the road, which is probably about 125, 135 feet. So that all that water drains down to the road, and even today there's a puddle the size of the front of this place here. So there's no place for it to drain. I can't really get into anything else because of the fact that I'm kind of unbiased to what happened there without being told. Two houses on, we thought was one lot. It's two lots, but 25 feet apart is kind of tough in the country. And then to have it okayed by the building department and have it being so far out of whack on all the other things being higher than the grade. The ponds that were put in, they were put in, then taken out, then re-put in, and I believe that's what they're talking about by how they redid the plans. I don't see how people can do that, get away with it, but I guess money does talk. And I don't believe that there's a person right now that can do any changes, but at least we can voice what's going on wrong. I take my bow, and that's it. I'm out.
Thank you, Mr. Dufour.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Mr. Dufour, I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you talk about the first house built, you're talking about the one in the back?
Yes, the blue house.
Thank you. And I will comment that Mr. Hillman, when he was on site, had spoken previously to Mr. Dufour and commented at that time that there was confirmed that the water was backing up on the street, as indicated by Mr. Dufour.
So is there any more folks that would like to speak? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on joining us remotely that would like to speak?
No.
Hearing no more from the public, let's turn to the commission. And go ahead, Commissioner Jacobs.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to start with this. Since this is the first time that we've had an opportunity to discuss 182 Sheldon, previously, as we all know, that this discussion started with a request for a certificate of compliance on 196 Sheldon Road. So we've not had an opportunity to discuss 182, I would like to start with the fact that, as we did with 196, there are violations to our original order of conditions, in particular 3, that are the commission shall be notified 48 hours prior to commencement of the project, which we were not. Item 8, construction to be in conformance with the approved plans, and as we know, that has not happened. And item 12, prior to start of construction, the applicant and a supervisor shall construct and hold a meeting with a representative of the commission. I would like to present a motion that these violations, we should assess a fine of $300 each as it relates to 182 Sheldon Road. And then we will proceed going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay. Joyce, do you want to, do you need to?
Yeah, I
document
just,
your
so what,
motion?
actually, the motion that we have today is pertaining to 182 Sheldon Road. It's parcel 87R525, and there are violations based on the order of conditions that were issued, I believe it was August of 2023. I'll get you that date, Harlan.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tantinarewat?
Aye.
Commissioner Sarfield, aye. The motion passes. Go ahead, Commissioner Jacobs.
All right, so Mr. Grasowitz, my first question is, I guess I don't understand if it's acceptable, well, we've got the two houses, this does mix both 196 and 182. The perimeter drain from 196 goes into a drainage basin on 182. This might be a question for Mr. Hillman and Mr. Erickson, and maybe even then we need to verify with the building department. Is that acceptable to allow drainage from one property onto another? That's open
Typically,
to the... Well, yep.
Typically, no, unless there's some sort of an easement to allow it. I believe our stormwater regs specifically prohibit that up to a certain design storm, and I think it's the 100-year storm.
So, Mr. Grasowitz, that being said, there was an easement provided in the first plan, the original plan. I don't see anything detailed in this new plan. Any comments, please?
Yes, we will make sure that, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if that's a footing drain or a roof drain, probably a roof drain, but we will make sure that there is an easement. At the present time, there's a host of lawyers involved in these two lots, and basically what happened was they took the very first A&R plan, not the final one, and they sold the lot based on that. They sold lot 1, number 196, based on the original A&R plan, which had a straight line coming back, going to the back of the lot. It actually goes right through the house on 196. So when the new deed that will include parcels going back and forth between number 182 and 186 or 196 rather, when that's done, I will make sure that there is an easement for that one drain. There were large drainage easements before because there was one big pond in the back and the drainage was overlapping one lot onto the other. This would be the only item that really needs an easement, is this this one drain from number 196 going to 182. But we'll make sure that easement is included in the new deed.
All right, thank you. I also do have another concern about the stormwater maintenance schedule that was filed with the NOI as part of 182. On page 42 of that NOI with the stormwater report, it states that the owners are the couple that currently owns 196, so it doesn't apply to whoever owns 182 right now. And it also states that the builder was a gentleman called Chris Brennan, and that the requirements of the town of Winchton Planning Board and their Conservation Commission should be applied. I think this was a little bit of sloppy work, that nobody reviewed this submittal before it was turned in.
It sounds like they didn't get checked very well, yes.
That's going to need to be revised, please.
Yes.
Okay. And Madam Chair, based on the fact that we've had so many issues with these lots, I would request, and has been recommended by Mass DEP, that we ask for a peer review on this site. Mr. Grasowitz, which you will need to inform. Now, can we clarify one more item? You said the builder is still the same, but it has transferred. There's been a deed transfer from Douglas to Aaron. That tells us that there's another person involved over original.
Aaron has been, he's been in charge of that project and working that for a while. I think initially when the lots were first cut and before any work actually happened, I think that Doug transferred it to Aaron. All of the lots. I think he had, well, I think he only has 2 lots. I'm not sure, he did either lot 9 or lot 10, and or maybe both of those, and he's also got this lot 2.
Yeah, that deed was just transferred on March 22nd of 2023, so it's pretty recent, but so as it stands right now, the owner of record on 182 is Aaron.
That's correct.
Okay. And again, you will need to inform your client in that case that peer reviews are at the expense of the applicant.
I will do that. And while we're speaking of fees, you mentioned the fines for the violation. Can you tell me what that amount is?
That will be $900, $300 a piece, total of $900.
Okay, very good.
And then I will make a motion to request a peer review on 182 Sheldon Road, please.
Second that motion.
Okay. You call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tantarowan?
Aye.
Commissioner Satterfield, aye. Motion passes.
And thank you, I'm all set.
Okay. Mr. Grasowitz, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Commissioner Donnelly.
I had a question. The as-built, well, the existing structures are far cry from the engineering plan that we previously received. Were those changes in any way the result of not being able to carry out the original plan, or at the whim of the builder?
No, I would say it was more of a builder's decision to use a modified footprint. I believe they both got smaller, but they are a little different. We had a typical rectangle with a garage that we were using when we originally submitted this, and one of them stayed similar. 182 was stayed similar, and They're both a little different, not dramatically.
Well, the elevation is considerably different. I'm wondering if they ran into any problems on site that required the elevation to change so substantially, and the drainage as a result.
Yeah, no, there wasn't any, that I know of, there wasn't any site condition that caused them to raise that up. We had done testing in the front of those lots and in the back of those lots. There was plenty of soil there. You would have had to, raise the house up a little and then also raise the leach fields up. On 182, the house is relatively really close to the leach field, so, kind of made sense avoiding the pump on that one. The other lot, the house is a long way from the leach field, and personally, I don't see any reason for putting all that fill on that one.
Okay. Yeah. And lastly, there'll be a peer review and time for comment later as well. On 196, in as much as there's drainage, I suspect formally the upland drained to 2 wetlands. And currently the change in elevation causes the water to drain to Sheldon Road proper. Can we get it to drain back to the wetlands?
Well, actually, yeah, it does. Basically, there's a high point. If you look at the as-built, there is you can see that there's essentially a high point coming from the roadway all the way back to the house on number 196, and 196 flows to the west. 186 or 182 rather flows to the east. And that water gets picked up by the driveway and the swale and brought back to the back of the lot. So even with the raised leach field, I mean, I don't know what the puddle consists of in the road. I'm going to have to go out and take a look at that, because there was some disturbance at the stone wall along the roadway there. But the spot grades that we had there kind of show that it's supposed to flow from, again, the center between those leach fields and between those 2 lots, going back towards the wetlands. And you'll see that there's a one contour, I think it's 996. It goes around the whole area, the leach fields, all the way back to the houses and the high points in between. So that water does go to the wetlands on both sides. I'll take a look and see what's going on up at the roadway, but there should be very little water, if any, getting actually out to the road.
Okay, I see the plan, and I get it. It's just that an abutter argues differently. And
right, no,
take a look at it on site,
I'll take a look at that physically. I know the culverts themselves, we've never been anywhere near them. They weren't touched, so they should be functioning as they originally were. But as far as the site grading goes, I will take a look at that and see what's happening right up by the roadway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further comments from the commissioners? Mr. Grasowitz, I do have a couple comments, and these fall under the sloppy category. I'm trying to understand here, this plan is dated July 27th, 2022, and it's signed and stamped. Is that what I'm seeing here? But it's actually...
There's a revision date on that right above there, revised 11/20/23.
Do we need a new stamp now?
I don't. That's what we received with the, and that's what I received from Mr. Fletcher.
Okay.
When he dropped off the NOI. That's why then I have a timestamp of when our office received it.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, you can check on the side. What does it say that?
This is received November 23rd, 2020.
We did an on-site, and it had been submitted to the Board of Health. That was at the That was a statement made by the builder and owner. He said that it had been delivered to the Board of Health, and on that on-site, we didn't have a plan in our possession. So, does anyone remember
Yes.
the on-site? Whatever that date was, we did not have it in our possession.
Okay, also, I've got the order of conditions has Douglas Seppala's name in it, but we've got Aaron Seppala here. And I'm just trying to understand what's going on here.
Okay, I didn't understand the question.
Well, we've got an order of conditions that's for Douglas Seppala. And then we have a deed here that's for Aaron Seppala. I mean, I'm just trying to understand. What is my question?
That it's still not the same owner.
Yeah, it's not the same owner.
Right, Aaron's the current owner, and he's the builder. He's the one that built the house, so same family, one of them deeded it to the other.
So we're going to give you a new order of conditions. And who does that new order of conditions go to, Mr. Gray?
Well, they would be recorded against the current owner. So right now, that would be for 182. That would be Aaron Seppala.
Okay. I also have another question. Did the original plans have all that fill in it?
The fill? No, we had fill around the leach fields, and we had some fill around the house, and we also had fill around the stormwater basin. But we did not have enough fill to the extent that the septics were going to flow, gravity flow from the house to the leach field. So even on 182, where the house is close to the leach field and always has been, we still had I believe we had a pump chamber there. So there was less fill on that, and certainly a lot less fill on going back towards number 196.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Herlin, I just wanted to confirm that the signature that we did get for this NOI is from Mr. Aaron Seppala?
I just want to, yeah.
Yes, I believe Trevor sent that down. He just received it, I believe, today or yesterday.
Yeah, I think there was just a clarification because I received it at 4 p.m. today.
Okay.
It says Aaron Seppala.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Also want to remind everybody once again that the bylaws state that all information needs to be in 7 days prior to the meeting. Mr. Grazowitz, I know you're aware of that.
Right.
We've had this conversation before.
Right. Well, we did an e-filing on the notice of intent, and they typically, those didn't require signatures, but they were asked for. So, well, we obtained Aaron's anyways, and 196 we haven't yet.
Thank you, Mr. Grazowitz. Commissioner Jacobs, have we accommodated for the local bylaw violations?
We have, because that's also under the wetlands protection, our wetlands ordinance. And again, the fact that the violations are now being discussed, and that is under our local ordinance.
Okay. Can we have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue with the peer review in place, or at least continuing to 182 Sheldon Road to January 3rd, 2024.
Need we extend that in the event that we don't get the peer review? It's subject to a peer review. We have nothing to discuss without it.
We'll do it in January if we don't.
We'll do it in January with the peer review. Second that motion.
Let me call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tantinaro-Watt?
Aye.
Commissioner Sarfield, aye. Thank you, Mr. Grazowitz.
All right, thank you.
We haven't received a signature for the current owners for the notice of intent for 196, so we're going to move on. We've got a notice of intent, City of Fitchburg. Let's see, where am I? Here we go. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 13, Section 40, the Fitchburg Conservation Commission will open the hearing for notice of intent, City of Fitchburg, CSO 032045083, Separation Rehabilitation Project.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Devin Herrick with Weston and Sampson. I'm wondering if it might be possible for me to get permission to share my screen. We have a PowerPoint to introduce the project.
Thank you.
You should already be able to.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming tonight.
All right. Excellent. Would you like to start with an introduction?
I believe Nick Erickson was going to start with an introduction.
Could you repeat that, please?
Nick Erickson, who I believe has joined us virtually, is going to start with a brief introduction.
No, what this gentleman said. I didn't hear what he, no, the guy in the white shirt.
Yes, Pat Cotton from Weston and Sampson. I said the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Thank
I
you.
didn't
Sorry
hear
about
you.
that
That's
if I
okay.
wasn't coming through.
Go
Thank
ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Erickson.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here tonight. So this project that's before you is the next phase of our combined sewer separation work in the city of Fitchburg, and it's titled the CSO 032, 045, and 083 Separation Rehabilitation Project. And so as you know, the city is under a consent decree with the US EPA and is mandated to separate out all of the combined sewers throughout the city. And this is the next phase in our attempt to comply with this consent decree. So as you've already been introduced, our team tonight consists of Pat and Devin from Weston and Sampson. And so with that, I'll pass it over to them.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Next slide, please. So essentially the project area for the next phase, which is this project of the combined sewer separation work, borders on the south by Boulder Drive and on the north up by Whitmore Street, and on the west with West Prospect Street, and on the east to Mount Vernon Street. So for a little bit of project background, kind of piggybacking on what Nick just said, so in 2012, the city of Fitchburg entered into a consent decree with the United States EPA and Mass DEP. All of this work is part of the consent decree compliance to remove all combined sewer overflows and separate the entire stormwater and wastewater collection system where it still remains combined. And in order to meet that goal, these projects need to be completed by 2030, and we are on track to complete that. I'd also like to mention that this project will be funded by the State Revolving Fund, Mass DEP, and we're just awaiting the project approval certificate for this project. As far as the goals for this project, again, to essentially remove these 3 CSOs, there are only 8 remaining in the system. So the effort will be separating the sewers, closing the regulators, and essentially improving the wastewater collection system within the project area, promoting much better water quality in the Nashua River and better for the public, the general public health as a whole. Also, as part of this project, we will be mitigating II, infiltration and inflow, which also taxes heavily the wastewater collection system and adds to these CSO events. So the proposed project scope for this particular phase and these three regulators is essentially 8,600 linear feet of new sanitary sewers and about 36,000 linear feet of new storm drains. These storm drains have been sized to handle the 2070 storm, which will also significantly reduce flooding in the project area. It also will result in the closure of the three regulators. So regulator 32 is located near 881 Main Street at the U.S. Post Office, and 45 is located at the intersection of Main and Oliver and Putnam Street, and then 83 at the intersection of Main and Pritchard Street. These three regulators activate pretty frequently during small rain events. So to get rid of these will be a really good step moving forward. And the EPA and Mass DEP has been very happy with the city's efforts to date and has recognized that to DPW. In addition to that, as I had mentioned before, there will also be trenchless rehab to reduce II upstream of the CSO regulators to help reduce CSOs moving forward and limit the amount of wastewater that is unnecessarily treated at the city's Easterly Wastewater Treatment Facility. So the proposed project scope is to upsize two existing outfalls to the North Nashua River, which Devin will elaborate on a little bit further in the presentation. Also upsizing 350 linear foot section of the Punch Brook Culvert, which is currently undersized near Low Playground, and then 4 new connections to the Punch Brook Culvert will be made with new stormwater piping at the Upper Common outside of 805 Main Street, Elm Street at Academy, Elm Street near the Fitchburg Art Museum, and Elm Street at the Northman Passway. So with that, I'd like to pass it off to Devin to talk to a little bit more about the NOI. Thanks.
Absolutely. We wanted to include just a couple of photos to be able to show you part of our wetland delineation that was conducted in the North Nashua River. These are some photos of the 2 existing outfalls that are being proposed to be replaced. The existing outfalls will remain in place, and the proposed outfalls will be located above the existing. So we have one outfall, and this is the second outfall that's located closer to Putnam Street. The wetland resources that we have for this particular project include riverfront area, bordering land subject to flooding, land underwater, and bank. Let's see if we're able to see my cursor. Well, not terribly well. But to the northwest of the project area, we have Punch Brook, which then becomes underground, and it goes through a culvert through downtown Fitchburg before it is discharged into the North Nashua River, which makes up the southern boundary of the proposed project. Our proposed wetland impacts, starting with riverfront area, we are proposing 13,200 square feet of temporary impact. To break that down just a little bit further, that's 9,511 square feet of temporary impact for the North Nashua riverfront area and 3,689 square feet of temporary impact for Punch Brook riverfront area. With regards to bordering land subject to flooding, we are proposing 11,854 square feet of temporary impact. I should note that this project proposes to return all grades to existing conditions, so there will be no change in flood storage as part of this proposed project. For bank, we have a cumulative 706 linear feet of bank impact, including 682 linear feet of replacement. To break that down, that's 5 linear feet of permanent impact to the North Nashua River and 701 linear feet of permanent impact to Punch Brook, including 682 linear feet of replacement. That mostly comes from the area where we are abandoning one section of the Punch Brook culvert that currently goes underneath private properties, and that is being relocated into the street. And so that abandonment is the chunk of some of the bank impacts that we're going to be talking about there. So we're taking and abandoning 334 linear feet and replacing with 341 linear feet that will be moved into the roadway. Last but certainly not least, we have land underwater for a cumulative 1,778 square feet of impact. That includes 1,174 square feet of permanent and 604 square feet of temporary impact, with 1,364 square feet of replacement. To break that down, we're looking at 604 square feet of temporary impact to the North Nashua River, solely for erosion control measures. There's going to be a curtain that's put in the river, so we're counting that area in between the curtain and the work area as our temporary impact zone. And then 1,174 square feet of permanent impact for Punch Brook, again, for that, mostly for that culvert relocation from the private properties into the roadway, and 1,364 square feet of replacement. We are also aware from your local requirements that there is a 50-foot no disturb and a 75-foot no build, which we would be requesting a waiver to, as this project needs to go right up to the edge of these resources. We are filing as a limited project for construction, reconstruction, operation, and maintenance of underground public utilities, and we are aware that a file number has not been issued yet, so we certainly won't be looking to close this evening, but we have the plan set available digitally, and we'd love to hear any questions or comments that you might have that we can answer for you.
Thank you, Devin. Let's open the floor for public comment. Would anyone like to speak in favor of or against this hearing, or would like to request more information? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Sally Cragen, 1138 Oak Hill Road, also the chair of Stratton Players. We own Lucy's Barn. So I'm sorry, the outflow.
There are additional overflows that are going to be dealt with. Where are those located?
Thank you. The additional 8 overflows. Nick, do we know where those are going to be located? Again, we have Lucy's Barn, which is at elevation, but our first floor is down by Boulder Drive, across from the Boulder Drive building.
Pat, do you think you could bring up the plan sheets that show the different regulator or outfall locations?
Just 1 second.
Sorry, bear with me. My computer's just a smidge slow.
It's okay.
Yep, of course.
I think it's a technical thing, because mine is too.
So, Councillor Cragen, just to kind of somewhat answer your question prior to Pat getting these up on the screen.
Sure.
So Lucy's Barn is located on Boulder Drive. It'll be nearby some of the new stormwater outfalls that are ultimately installed for the project.
Okay.
But it's not located right adjacent to any of the existing sewer overflow regulators that we're separating out. So there certainly is going to be some temporary impacts to Boulder Drive and Main Street on either side of your property, but nothing that should directly impact Lucy's Barn or the operations that you're proposing there.
Right. Okay. I think my question really had to do with: do we have a month or time within your parameters of that South Nashua River where Boulder Drive would be impacted?
Oh, I see.
Because we are just, again, our aim as a nonprofit is to ensure that there is a I don't have the language, but the pipe that extends from the sewer separation that can be hooked up to Lucy's Barn, you know, when the proper plumbing happens. And the library is affected by this too, so yes.
Right. So the area of Lucy's Barn, the library, et cetera, that's definitely within the combined sewer area that's being separated out. But as far as impacts directly to those properties during construction, access should be able to be maintained completely. I mean, Pat, I'm not sure if you agree with that statement.
I do agree with that statement, Nick, and also in the areas that front areas where the combined sewers still exist, laterals are also replaced to the property line as well as sewer and drain laterals to help even ensure further separation where existing roof leaders and other illicit connections are now currently connected to the combined system to clearly separate out wastewater and wastewater and stormwater into the two separate pipes.
So this is the closest portion.
So we've been leading up to this effort in this project. We performed building inspections in the majority of the buildings in these areas that would allow access, and we'll work with the homeowners to help with future stormwater connections on the property that may exist.
Okay, thank you. We're not exactly a homeowner because we're a nonprofit, but
yes.
Okay. All right. No, this is helpful for us and for me to bring back to our board. So good timing on that. Thank you.
So do we have anyone else who'd like to comment?
If I may, Ms. Chairman?
Well, I mean, did you have any more comments, Mr. Warner?
No, just the concern.
Can you come up to the podium, please?
Hi, Chuck Warner, 1138 Oak Hill Road. Will the capacity for moving water from Punch Brook to the Nashua increase as a result of the new pipes that you're doing? Will that ease the flooding situations that the library is dealing with, or other businesses downtown have always dealt with water?
I can answer that question. 100%. So all of the new drainage that will be installed as part of the separation project has been designed to handle the 2070 design storm for increased resiliency and will reduce flooding in the downtown area.
Okay. Do you have like a gross capacity increase that you can cite?
Percentage-wise, I think it just depends on what area of the system you're looking at, but a hydraulic model was done for the entire project area to make sure the entire drainage system can handle the 2070 design storm.
Right, but that's as of 2030 when the projects are all done.
Right.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so this project will probably be complete around 2025 at some point.
Okay. Right. But you don't have a specific, there's no specific increased flow that you can cite for this particular phase of the project.
The increased flow in the system?
From Punch Brook, I mean, the problem is these rain events.
Yes.
That everything that's up Punch Brook has to come down through downtown to get to the river.
Correct.
It always has, and what the concerns for Lucy's Barn, for the library, and for all kinds of other people there is just, is this going to have an immediate payoff in the amount of water in the basements, or is it going to have to wait until the other 8 sites are replaced?
Okay. Now I completely understand the question. Yes, it will. This project is addressing this area of the system. So not the future projects are going to focus on other areas. This project is focusing on downtown and this particular area. Sorry that for the confusion that I had with that.
No, that makes perfect sense. But this is going from the main source of the water to the Nashua. So it's taking it fair to say it's tackling the worst problem first?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone, your comments come to the chair, and it's okay. I'm just reminding that we do need to try and follow the regulations. Councillor Cragen, did you have a comment?
I'll say later. Offline.
Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no more from the public, I'd like to turn to the commission. I guess my first question is, have the abutter cards been submitted for this?
The certificate of mailing forms were included in the application. They're in the appendix with the abutters notice.
Yeah, I saw them, yeah.
You saw them? Okay, thank you. And was there a dewatering plan? Did you submit a dewatering plan? Are you going to be in the river?
We're not, the only portion, there is no proposed work in the river itself. We're just putting an erosion control in the river just in case anything were to spill in, but there's no dewatering proposed in the river, so there's no dewatering plan.
Okay. Do we have any commissioners that have a comment?
I know you said we were waiting for a DEP number. Has that been filed yet? Because I don't see it on Mass DEP's list, because usually it's just there with no number.
It has been filed. We filed it the day that we submitted. I think they're just our last one took 6 weeks to get. I think they're just a little behind right now, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
I can verify. I can verify that it was filed because I got a notice from.
Okay, because it's not showing up even on the screen yet. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Donnelly?
I don't know if this is Weston and Sampson's responsibility or our own on-site engineer, Nick or Jeff's responsibility, but I'm looking for an on-site visit at Burbank Street and Punch Brook and the redirection of sewerage from private property 300 feet to public property. I just want to get a feel for what's going on there. And rather than an explanation, I'm a visual kind of guy. So I'm wondering if somebody could take me through that on site.
Would you like that too?
We would be happy to take a site
Are you
walk
going to charge the city?
No. I didn't know if the question was addressed to Weston and Sampson or to the city. My apologies.
I needed to know who would do that for me, and I don't want it to cost anything, except for your time. And if Nick could do it, he's at home. You're not at home. You only come here
Commissioner
when
Donnelly, we could accommodate that request. Honestly, I'm going to ask Pat to be there regardless of whether you want him there or not. So, but we can do a site visit to take a look at the plans versus what's actually on the ground out there.
You know what's going on up there, right, Nick? That's my point. You know what's going on underground there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's good. That's it.
Yeah.
Would you like me to coordinate that, Commissioner Donnelly? Is that why?
I could probably work with him.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Christian would like to attend a site visit.
Well, I didn't invite him. Okay.
And I just want to add to Councilor Cragen, if you would like to have a similar type site visit out at Lucy's Barn to review project impacts in that immediate area, happy to do that with you as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Erickson, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for the offer. Yeah, we'll keep communicating.
You're most welcome.
Oh, I did have one more question. I heard that the cost of this project is being borne by the state.
It is being funded by the state through a grant loan.
Okay, so it begs the question, our sewer charges, they've been going up quite a bit lately. Could we expect any stabilization on sewer charges? I always thought that we were paying exorbitant sewer charges to fund sewer separation. I was mistaken? Nobody's going to answer.
I don't know that that's within our jurisdiction, Commissioner Donnelly.
Excuse me?
I don't know that's within our jurisdiction to discuss sewer rates.
We have a lot of intelligent people here in the room. Figure it out.
I can help answer that, Councilor Donnelly. So these projects are funded through the state revolving fund, which allows for low interest loans to municipalities for this type of work with principal forgiveness. So we do have to pay our fair share for these combined sewer separation projects out of the wastewater enterprise fund rates. However, we minimize the impacts to the ratepayers as much as possible by utilizing these programs. Because typically we get loan interest rates around 1%. It varies obviously, but and we also get significant combined principal forgiveness out of these loans. So this project that's ongoing right now in construction, the combined sewer separation project for CSO 10 that you see on the western end of Main Street, that project is essentially a $10 million project, and we're receiving $1 million worth of principal forgiveness through the state revolving fund program. So it doesn't completely eliminate the impacts to the ratepayers, but it makes it as palatable as possible. As far as we can work it, that's the best deal we're getting for the city for the work that we're required to do by the federal government.
Our presenter here led me to believe we were going to get a check. They were paying us to do it. That's all right.
I wish that was the case.
We all. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so can we have a motion to continue? Are there any more comments, questions? Can we have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue to our January 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Seconded.
All right, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tanner-Awad?
Aye.
Commissioner Satterfield? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, we're going to go a little bit out of order on our agenda and bring, is it Officer Lambert? Captain Lambert, I'm sorry.
We have Ryan Kylene.
We also have Ryan Kylene on Zoom joining us. And
hello.
This is related to the Rollstone Granite Quarry Access Road. Thank you for joining us, Captain Lambert.
Thank you. Captain Lambert, I'm representing the Fitchburg Fire Department. I am the signal and radio maintenance for the fire department. Basically, I handle all radio communications. The Quarry Tower, the access road, during the two major rainstorms we had this summer, has caused some considerable erosion. And I approached the DPW to work with me to get this repaired. And then I was informed that I had to approach you guys because it's part of the Rollstone Conservation Commission. So I'm just here to request permission to have this work done.
I don't know if Ryan wants
that's
to say
all.
anything.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Captain Lambert. Mr. Kylene, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so I took a walk up there and I looked at the access road to the communications tower, and it's currently a mixture of asphalt regrinds with some hot mix occasionally used. It's probably just using up some leftover hot mix at the end of some projects. So it's just a mixed bag up there of a lot of different materials. So we know that in the past we've had complaints about using regrinds. So we just wanted to make sure that before we went and did any repairs using asphalt regrinds like this, we just wanted to make sure that, approach Conservation Committee and see if you guys would prefer for us to use a different material up there. So we provided a spec for a different type of material that the water department uses for many of their access roads. So if, the pictures, there's a couple different pictures. Basically, that's what the current condition of the road is like up there, and that's the material that's currently being used. So the reason we're here is just to determine whether or not committee would have any issues with us continuing to use leftover regrinds that we have on stock as a resource, or if we should bring in this gravel burrow that we have a spec here for.
Thank you, Mr. Kylene. Is that correct? Kylene?
Yes, Kylene, that's correct.
Kylene?
Yes.
Kylene,
yes.
Where was he coming? Where?
DPW.
Oh, you're with the DPW. Okay.
Assistant City Engineer.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
I just wanted to say that recommendation, that he got that advice, was the best advice you got. Secondly, thank you, everybody, for the courtesy to come to CONSCOM, because we get kind of responsibility of a portion of that hill. Thank you. And then what I'm looking at appears to be reground blacktop as opposed to reground concrete. Am I correct?
Yes, that's what it appears to be. I cannot speak for what was done in the past. I've only been in my current position just about a year. And after the storms and doing the site visit myself, that's when I started the process of looking into getting this road repaired.
And then,
so what was done in the past, I cannot say I cannot comment on what
but
they've
we're
done.
looking at reground blacktop.
Yes, we are.
All right. The earlier correspondence had to do with reground concrete. That's all. That's the way I read it. Nevertheless, doesn't matter.
At the time, I think it was just whatever was available that the city could use.
And now to the CONSCOM. I want them to get it done if it'll make them happy. But both of them travel. And a heavier stone is less inclined to travel. They both travel, depending on the slope. And we'll use as an example Swan Ave, what are we talking?
Winoosknock Road.
Winoosknock Road. They packed it down, but it's a combination of half-inch, three-quarter-inch, and stone dust. And that washed a bit. But that's all I got to say is the bigger it is, the less it's going to travel. And both of those on the wrong slope will travel. It's not going to get packed. There's not enough traffic up there to really keep it in place. Doesn't get enough
That's
traffic,
correct.
right? It just, we kind of forget about it. You only go up there once a month, if you do, right?
When needed.
When needed, yeah.
Madam Chair, does Mr. Hillman have a comment?
Go ahead, Mr. Hellman.
Yes, just a comment for Mr. Donnelly. So the recommendation for the ACM material actually came through the water department, and this is the type of gravel bar that they actually use on their access roads to the water tanks, and they've had very good results with it with respect to compaction, holding in place during rainstorms, and minimizing the erosion on the road, or the effects from the runoff with this material.
Get it done.
So thanks for that.
Any other comments?
Thanks, sir.
Commissioner Christian?
I don't know anything about it. Let them do their job.
Captain Lambert, thank you so much for coming tonight and including us in your process.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Madam Chair, do we want to just pass a motion and then we can just, for the record, that we authorize the DPW to use best management practices with whatever material they feel is acceptable to just get this road repaired, for the record?
If you want to vote.
Go ahead.
I was just going to write a formal notice saying that this came up. I don't know if it necessarily requires a vote.
Okay, so then that's fine. Yep.
Okay.
We're all in agreement. Okay.
Yeah, I think that the safety of the employees of the city and the public are foremost in our thoughts here, and supporting the
Well, if we want the same
department,
if we want the
supporting
same
the fire department, definitely.
if we want the same courtesy from anyone else that has to do work on CONSCOM property, you ought to have a hint of formality so that they do extend the courtesy, and it's not just brushed off. We have to recognize that they took the time to do it, and the next person that comes, we appreciate and recognize that we got responsibility for that land, and someone recognizes it.
So I think, Herlin, you were going to write a formal notice? Herlin's going to write a formal notice, so we have a paper trail.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Captain Lambert. Thank you, Mr. Colleen.
Thank you.
Jeff, is your hand up?
Yes. So I did speak with Mr. Donnelly earlier. One concern, so depending on what material we choose to use, if you do allow regrinds, more or less that is free for us for this, as the DPW, as we have a stockpile of it. However, if we move with the concrete material, Currently, right now, my budget is very limited to be able to purchase materials. So I was just asking, what would the board, or I guess anybody, have for comments on where and how we could get this material paid for? Because like I said, my budget is very limited at this point.
I don't have any of those.
But Mr. Hillman, if we use the regrind, that is something that there's no additional cost to, right?
That's correct.
And Commissioner Donnelly said it's acceptable to use either one?
I get it was all about slope. Yeah, you got it. You got to use what you got. I get that. Not a problem. I just, to the conscom, that the bigger the slope, the lighter the material travels, and consider that. That's all.
So, Mr. Hillman, then it's at your discretion, and if the regrind is available, then that's at your discretion to whatever you need to get it done.
Yeah.
Sounds good, board. Thank you.
I'm good with that answer, too. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you both for coming.
Jeff was trying to get money out of me this afternoon, and I said, no way, Jose. Get it out of Mr. Lambert.
Okay, let's, thank you, Captain Lambert. We don't want him to not ever come back, okay?
I'll take you for a site visit if you'd like.
Oh.
What'd you say?
I'll take you for a site.
You got a check? No, take you on the site if you want to go.
Bring your own spray paint.
Have a nice evening.
All right, have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get back to other business. Do we have any updates? Let's see.
Madam Chair, can I suggest, Mr. Kuber is here and has been waiting, so if we move on to his violation and then we can go back to other
Sure.
business.
Sure, Mr. Kuba, come on up. It's nice to see you. And we have let's see. We had a note about this in here. Let's see. This is Birchbrook.
Oh, okay.
Thought I had a note in here. I didn't have a note in here. Oh, here it is. We had a site visit. Joyce, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. We went on a site visit to, this is 691 Mount Elam Road, Mr. Kuba's property. There has been some question about whether or not there was work done in a wetland buffer area, and we had been asking Mr. Kuba to have the wetlands delineated, which he did, and we walked through that area. So now we're in the process of discussion. We asked Mr. Kuba to come to the meeting tonight to discuss any remediation that the board feels is necessary based on the fill that was put into the buffer zone. And that's where we're at today. So, Mr. Kuba, I mean, we talked about now we're all in agreement of where the buffer zone exists, and you're aware that some of what you filled in your rear yard there was not permitted. So it is of my opinion, and then we have other members that will need to weigh in, that the fill within that buffer zone, which is basically about half of your backyard there, is going to need to come out and be restored to what it was, because that was not allowed in the first place.
Yes.
Again, we've had this discussion several times about you can do things on your property if it's permitted.
Yes, sir.
Since that was not permitted, we'd like to put it back.
Yes, whatever you guys see that's proper to be done.
And there was not, that's just the fill that was in place. There's also the discussion, the fence was installed, which is also in the buffer zone and not permitted. And apparently, as we've talked several times, there were trees cut down and that fall under the purview of the Conservation Commission. So we need to talk about that. Any other commissioners wish to comment? Or I am of the opinion that at least when it comes to the fill in the backyard, and then we will have to go out and determine where that 100-foot is, that's going to need to be cleared out. Now, unfortunately, that's going to put the way your gate is right now, and I know you're driving, as you said to us, trailers behind the property. That's going to limit your access to the backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I need it so bad to drive back there and park my trailer. Like I said, I use it for work, and it is my property back there. I do understand what you're saying, but I don't know much to say.
So, Herlin, we don't have the plans that we can put up on the screen, but the other option is I still don't see, some of that has got to be taken out, and the determination is how much needs to be taken out. And unfortunately, can you access from the other side of your property? Now, again, this would mean you would have to redo your fence and move your gate from, as you're looking at your property, from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, because then you're outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah. Ma'am, it becomes very hard regarding to that gate. That gate and that fence next to the gate have cost enormous amount of money. That gate is cost $15,000. The white fence, the 8-foot fence next to that gate, cost $10,000. So those white plastic fencing that you see cost $25,000. On the other side, I've already put a fence too, and I put a gazebo back there. And I'm also planning in the summer to redo my stone wall on my property. It gets very, very hard to change things around currently.
So, I mean, you've left us with quite a dilemma, because you understand and you've acknowledged that there was fill that was placed within the buffer zone, okay? And again, there are commissioners here. I am not inclined to say that should be left there, since it was work that was done that was without a permit.
I mean, the call is yours, whatever you want me regarding the fill and the crushed stone, the regrinds. If you want me to back it up, for sure I would have to back it up. But regarding the fence and the gate, I would like to leave them the way they are, untouched, because they cost enormous amount of money. And when I bought the house, it didn't have no fencing whatsoever. About, I believe, 2 years ago, I was away, and somebody broke into my house, and then I was robbed. So there's a big importance for fencing. I put up fencing, and I put up security systems. Obviously, what I did, I needed it done badly regarding to the fencing or the pavement that I drive back there for. But regarding to the slope that's back there, whatever you find necessary to be done, I'm ready and I have to do it. I would like to, of course, I would like to keep things the way they are, but it's your call what is necessary to be done. When I did the work back there, first of all, I didn't know anything about the Conservation Commission. I did see a wet area. I wasn't sure if it was classified as a wetland or not. It was a very wet, muddy area, which I didn't. I stayed away from it as a muddy area because you cannot do anything in the muddy area. Obviously, it was classified as a wetland, and there's a buffer zone for it, which I'm in that buffer zone. like I said, I really would love to keep what I have, unless whatever you guys find important and necessary to be done.
So I would, at this point, so we have the driveway, and even where the gate is in that, it's not all that, like, the concerning part of what's in the 100-foot buffer zone is the material that's in the back. So if we allow the fencing and the gate to remain, because yes, that's in the buffer zone, but it's not in the wetland
I have one more thing. The law, the wetland scientist mentioned the law by the state that says fencing is allowed in a wetland and its buffer zone without permission, considered a minor work. That's regarding the fencing, which I didn't know either about at all, which she have mentioned to me.
It is, but again, when all of this in the scope was done without a permit, we kind of have to look at it as one, this is what we're dealing with.
Yes.
So again, the fence and the gate and that can remain, but within that fenced area, particularly in the far, when we look at the old GSI maps and that show the property, that back corner on the right-hand side is really where we're in the buffer. That's where the biggest disturbance has been. I think that needs to be remediated. And as a condition of that, we would allow the fencing to remain, but we still need to talk about any other work that's been done in the buffer zone, particularly the trees that were moved, that I know has been also an ongoing discussion about that property for some time. If any of the other commissioners want to weigh in, that's...
I just find it hard. You have, either you make them remove it or you're not, because we have other cases tonight that we are making them remove it. We had Ridemore earlier, we made them remove it. So, yes, you can use some consideration, but I would like to see uniformity, how we treat one, we treat the other. And this has been a multi-year ongoing violation. So it's hard to turn a blind eye to that, in my opinion.
Joyce shared a lot with Mr. Kuda. I want to bring to the commission's attention. There's a violation notice. As a matter of course, not for Mr. Kuda, but for everybody. There's a violation notice. The violation notice can be followed up with, or someone who has an order of conditions, there's an enforcement order. There's an order of conditions. The word is order. So where we are now is not to see what suits somebody, but what do we want out of it. So anybody sitting on that side of this table has to know what we want out of it. That means we have to pool our collective reason. What do we want out of it? Then the burden would be on the applicant or the person over there to show us how he's going to do it. Okay, we don't design it for him, but we have to know what we want and tell him. And then he knows what he has to do to satisfy what we want. So there are violations. You list the violations. We want this, 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 and this to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act. Then he knows, and he's been very cooperative and said, I'll do what I have to do. He said he expressed his interest in what he wanted to hold on to, and because he's got quite an economic burden on it. But we got to be able to tell him so that he designs a solution to our enforcement order. It's an order. It's not a suggestion. It's not even we're not soliciting his opinion. We're giving him direction. This is what we want. And we have to know what we want. I mean, explicitly. And, the idea of the fence, it's probably within the 20-foot. No build and 25-foot no disturb.
I would like to give a suggestion. Previously, I have done a stone wall, which was on city property, and I took it down because it was on city property, and they didn't want to allow me. Regarding to the Conservation Commission and what I have done without permission, it is on my property, but I would like to give a sort of a recommendation if they could, if they would allow me to keep some stuff or the majority of the stuff or whatever I have done and issue a decent fine to as a result of what have been done without a permit. I would like that to be in consideration as a way of keeping what I have done.
So I'm not sure I would.
That's his solution to an order. That's his solution to our request. So we know what he wants. We have to tell him what we want. That's all. And then we can come to some resolve.
How do we calculate what fine or what settlement amount would
That's
be
his solution. We haven't given him what we want.
I want to remind the committee that we do have a subcommittee of violation enforcement subcommittee. And I think that this would be an excellent opportunity to have the committee work with Mr. Kuba here and to come up with exactly what you're talking about. And we can do that.
Well, I understand where you're going, but we're here tonight.
Okay.
So I would like member input because we all started with this violation with member input versus the subcommittee on violations. Or is some kind of penalty if we negotiated some kind of payment settlement with Mr. Kuba? Is that acceptable to other commissioners?
Go ahead.
Before we just settle on that, during the site walkthrough with you, did you have mentioned that your basement is flooding more frequently since you removed all that trees and shrubage?
Yes, I have seen some floods in the basement, but I don't think it came from cutting down the trees. It came from me planting the trees and raising up. When I planted the trees, I have laid down dirt on the edge of the top perimeter of the property, and that was blocking water going through. And then later on, I opened up channels for the water to go through. I'm not sure. Mr. Donnelly have mentioned to me that there was a pipe that could have been blocked. I'm not sure if it's blocked that wasn't letting water out. I don't exactly know why the flooding came in the basement, but I have done many things so it doesn't flood anymore.
My question on that is just basically, you do have several abutting neighbors, and just paying a fee doesn't necessarily resolve any of that water absorption that would be potentially preventing your basements from flooding. So we could settle on a fine, but to me, I don't think it resolves.
I have resolved my basement issue myself. I have dug the original foundation of the wall before I built that wall. That was supposed to work as like a French drain that was filled with gravel, so that would catch the water from the side of the house. It would run through under the wall, and then it would discharge at the bottom of the hill where my mailbox is. So basically, the wall from the side of the house would grab the water would channel through underneath the wall and would dump at the bottom of the hill by the mailbox. That was one of the things I have done to help the water going through and flooding the basement. Another thing I have put up a sump pump in the basement, and I have a pipe going down that discharges at the bottom, close to the bottom of the hill. For the water that comes out from the basement.
Well, but Mr. Cooper, I think the point that Commissioner Tantantarawat is trying to make is that you can mitigate water on your property, but the fact that fill and that regrind in the buffer zone in the backside of your property, that mitigates water for everyone in the area versus that water needs to go someplace else too, So it's not just a concern just for your house. I think we had this conversation when we were there. Wetlands are there for a reason because they absorb all the surrounding water, not just on one property. Am I explaining that, I think?
Great job.
The regrinds is very absorbs water pretty well, the regrinds back there.
Not the same as trees and vegetation.
Yeah, true, but you also have, when the tree leaves fall down, they basically make a layer on top of the ground too, which is doesn't really help water absorb when you have a lot of tree leaves in the woods.
But how thick is the regrind that you have there?
Not thick at all. In some places, half a foot. In some places, an inch. In some places, 2-3 inches. It was mostly fill before the regrinds.
Commissioner Christian, did you have a comment?
Yes, the trees that you cut in front of the house.
Yes.
Are those on your property or was that on city property?
There was about 6-7 trees, which I have all pictures. Somewhere on mine, somewhere right on the line, and 1 or 2 could have been on city property. But
so how do we put a value, or how do you replace a 3-foot oak tree? Or, that's a 100-year-old tree.
I want to plant so many trees in front of the house, but I haven't had the chance to because I was busy taking down the wall. I want to plant between 15 and 20 in front of the house. I know you said it's an oak tree. I mean, the oak trees are everywhere.
Not 3-footers. I mean,
let me tell you, sir, regarding to those trees, the Ashland, I think it's called Ashland in English, the Ashland company, the tree service company, they came to my house, and before I cut the last 2 trees down, they were sent by the electric company, and they flagged them, and they make me sign a paper that they want to take them down. I happened to take those 3 down before they did, but they did flag them. They want to take them down. I was afraid of that big tree. That big tree that the stump is still there. I didn't need to cut it. I was kind of afraid of it. It was so huge, and the stump is very visible, so I wasn't sure how strong it's in the ground. And the other, maybe there was one more tree maybe next to it on city property, and the rest right on the line and on my property.
Mr. Erickson, do you have a comment on any of that? Because I know you were involved in that original situation.
Sorry, before Mr. Erickson calls, I also think Mr. Kylian also had a comment too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, either one, please.
Well, my involvement was the notice of violation with the placement of the wall within the right-of-way.
And that's been removed now, Ryan, so you're comfortable with where we stand with that right now?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, that was my involvement with this situation.
Okay, thank you.
And my involvement was a little bit, happened a little bit prior to that. So I think it was at some point during 2020. I remember it was during the COVID shutdown. I met out there with Mr. O'Hara and the former building commissioner and Mr. Kuba. And that was right after he had kind of paved the whole site and put down regrinds in other areas. And we just kind of flagged it as a wetlands violation at that time. And then I think that's the point at which Mr. O'Hara started to ask for some of the documentation to support the work that was done with relation to the stream that goes under Mount Elam Road. But following that, my involvement was fairly limited. I know Ryan was heavily involved with the wall. So at some point, I'm assuming some documents were submitted for the amount of impervious area that was generated, but I haven't looked at those. So if those are available, I'll certainly check them out prior to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. As far as the regrind in the back of the project, my thought when you say we need to decide what we want to do, I would like to see 75 feet of that buffer restored. I look at that and say,
request.
That if we had a notice of intent filed that work would have been allowed in the buffer zone, it's just determined how much. So if we took out 75 feet of that would have to be restored, that would be acceptable to me. I'm just one commissioner. That's a proposal on the floor. Discussion of the trees, maybe that's something that we can move to the violations committee, and let's talk about what we want set in place for some restoration effort with those.
There was access to the backyard on the right side of the house. The only difference between prior to the work and today is it's impervious within 25 feet of the wetland. And would we have allowed it? That's a question we always ask. Probably not. And it's impervious now. That's the gate and that's everything, and blacktop. So you'd have to ask yourself, if we wouldn't have allowed it, then we shouldn't allow it.
But the driveway blacktop has been there all along.
No,
If you-
it was earthen on the right side of the house. Well, I know it was.
Okay.
And we're not going to have him restore the woodland in the backyard, but we're not going. It was 20,000 square feet of woodland. If you think that didn't make a difference with the water, it made a lot of difference with how much water we're going to get in our basement. When you take away that tree cover and that root system, there's a lot of water, and it has to go somewhere, and it would go there.
So this was
the driveway.
2021, and that driveway was here. So, no, all right, so you're saying this side, on the side of the driveway is what was paved? Okay.
And then, so we're not gonna, well, I guess you could, but what vegetates replaces the regrind that you want to remove?
Well, that's where Mr. Kuba will have to come up with a plan to say, how is he going to remediate that 75 feet?
Okay, well, we have to tell him that we want a vegetative surface to perform what was functioning prior to the regrind, right? And he'll come up with whatever it is, right? We accept it or we don't accept it. The fence and the blacktop on the right side, if we would have allowed it, leave well enough alone. If we would not have allowed it, you don't allow it now. And that's telling him, giving him some direction in the form of a remediation, an order, if you will. And then regarding the public shade trees out front, they have a value, and you can't replace that with a tree. You can't replace two 32-inch oaks with a tree, but you can economically, and then you can multiply how many of those oak trees or equal shade trees could replace it. And my only concern about everything was to allow, I would ask the committee if I could get an estimate on the value of two trees. If the committee told me that I could, then I would get an estimate on replacing the two lost oak trees out front. So I'm telling you what I would recommend along with her remediation. And if anyone else has anything to chime in, we put that in writing and share it with him so he knows how he can plan his repair.
So if Commissioner Donnelly wants to do the research to find out what the value of the trees were so that we could share that with Mr. Cuba and have some negotiation on that, that would be acceptable.
Okay. Commissioner Christian?
I agree. How do you come up with that value? I mean,
there's a horticultural appraiser. He's a professional, and he can tell you what that tree has, what value that tree has. But one more thing is because the wetland scientist, or I don't know who, came up with this. Maybe in the violation notice, it reflected, it suggested that the stream was intermittent. I would like to ascertain whether it's perennial or intermittent, because I've been there 40 years and it's perennial.
Does it appear on a topo map?
No, doesn't matter. They
But
do,
that-
but it doesn't, you know.
But how does that classification impact what we intend to do?
200-foot zone with perennial versus intermittent.
According to the report, it says the stream is not shown as a perennial stream on the USGS map. However, an analysis of the contributing water basin could be completed to provide a more definitive determination.
Yep. I was going to invite the CONSCOM to do a popcorn test with me.
That's certainly an option.
You can ask any neighbors if you ever seen it dry, because if you see it dry, it's intermittent, and they'll tell you they've never seen it dry, so it's perennial, and it's not on the USGS. I know that.
One day a year.
That's just a note. Nothing more.
If he's discussing if it's intermittent or perennial, basically my entire property is the buffer zone of a wetland. What more difference does it make that river?
The standards are higher on a perennial stream versus.
I'm still in the buffer zone.
The standards are higher on a perennial versus an intermittent.
Yeah, but the work I have done
Okay.
is already known what it is.
Remediation.
Excuse me, we've got Mr. Erickson, Commissioner Erickson.
Thank you. I would recommend that we treat this similar to what we've done over on Will Thompson Way. Those are two brand new lots that are going through some sort of a development. Based on the impervious area, we've asked them to provide stormwater calcs and put in detention basins to handle the runoff from the impervious area. I really don't see this as a whole lot different from those types of projects. You've got an applicant or violator in this case that installed a large amount of impervious area within a resource area. So in my opinion, what he should be required to do is the same that any new developer would need to take on as part of their development. So installing BMPs to handle the runoff from these new impervious areas and design calculations to support that, in addition to operation and maintenance plans for that set of BMPs, in a construction period, erosion and sediment controls to make sure that sediments are properly managed within the buffer zone to the resource area during construction. I think that would be a fair way to do it when you're comparing it to other projects and past practice. And that would be my recommendation for this.
Madam Chair, could we have Jamie Herlin?
Thank you.
Could we have Herlin prepare that, for lack of a better thing, enforcement order, for lack of a better term, an order, and then the ball's in his court. Then now he knows what we're looking for, and not some big question, and we know what to expect. He has to.
So do we have an outstanding enforcement order on this property?
For lack of a better term. It's an order as opposed to a discussion.
Right, but I'm just saying, don't we have an open enforcement order on this property?
Violation notice.
A violation notice.
Okay, all right, so I would agree with that. So, Mr. Kuba, what we're going to do is we're going to issue an enforcement order that restates the violation. And you will then, as Commissioner Erickson recommended, which he's right, will then need to probably get involved with an engineering firm to show us how you are going to remediate that violation. And the violation is by having filled within the buffer zone. And they will come up with a plan that you and they will submit to us, and we will make a determination as to whether or not that plan is acceptable.
Okay, I don't exactly fully understood what you meant by, but so I would talk to an engineer to do a plan as for a drain, keeping the crushed stuff, or removing that crushed stuff. I don't understand.
Well, that's what the engineer will be able to tell you. They may come up with plans that you can put in drainage basins, as Commissioner Erickson just talked about, or it might be that they would present a plan that says it has to come out and we're going to take that all out. So the enforcement order will be issued saying that you have to remediate the property. Now you're going to work with an engineer to figure out how that remediation is going to take place, because basically what we've been saying all along, you've now added impervious surface to what before was the wetland buffer.
Okay, so I get an engineer. I would tell him there is an issue with the water and what should be done.
Yes.
Whether to remove, for
No,
him to make a decision,
The engineer will determine what needs to be done.
Okay.
It'll be stated in the violation order what the violation is, that there was
Okay.
fill placed in the
Yes.
buffer.
Okay.
And the engineer will do the stormwater calculations
Okay.
to find out whether or not that's creating more runoff. The engineer will then
Okay,
come up with
is
a
he
plan
a regular?
to
I
fix
don't know much about engineers. Is it a regular engineer or a specific engineer?
It's a professional engineer or civil engineer.
Okay.
Mr. Erickson, we can work with either one, correct?
Yeah, it has to be a professional civil engineer that's registered in the state of Massachusetts.
Okay, I understood.
Okay.
I have one thing. I usually go away in the winter for a few months. I know you guys want your stuff done right away, and of course I have to get it done right away. Like I said to you before, if anything needs to be done regarding the removal or installing anything, which I would prefer to get it done in the summer. And in the winter the ground freezes up, and usually people don't work with the ground in the winter. I'm not sure exactly which date I'm gonna be away and for how long. I usually go for 2, 3, up to 4 months in the winter. I know you're going to send me that in the mail, and I have to present it to the engineer to take a look and then decide all water calculations and what needs to be done. But what should I be doing if I
But
go
you're going
away?
to get the enforcement order. You're not leaving immediately, right?
Not in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would
Yeah,
say.
all right. So you'll get the enforcement order in the next week, Herlin?
Yeah, I'll put it together tomorrow.
So you'll get that. You'll have to work with an engineering firm then, probably I would recommend before you leave, and let them do the work while you're gone. Let them create the plan, let them come up with the remediation. And we understand that once the ground is frozen, there's not a lot that can happen anyway.
Yeah.
So during the time that you're gone, the engineering process can be established.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So that actually should accommodate your schedule quite well.
I want to ask you another question. I'm not sure what the engineer gonna say or find out. So is there any possibility after he looks at it for me keeping any of the crushed stone that I have back there?
It might. They said, we talked about Ridemore, one of the plans that there was a violation there. Their engineer came up with 3 possible scenarios. Here's A, here's B, and here's C.
Okay.
And then they explained the mechanics of all of them, and we decided which one of the 3 plans was acceptable to us.
Okay.
Your engineer, once you hire him, might be able to do exactly the same thing.
Okay, so he gives a variety of options.
Yes, and then
Okay.
we will decide which one is acceptable to the commission.
Would there be any deadline when the engineering paperwork should be ready for you guys?
No, the key is going to be is that whoever you get for an engineer, they always communicate with Miss Jamie, and then as long as that communication is ongoing, that's acceptable. When the communication stops,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yes. I'm gonna wait to see it, to get stuff in the mail and then work on it. I will keep the agent with what I'm doing, and if I'm going overseas, I will let her know the dates and stuff like that. And I will be doing my best, and I will be cooperating fully with you guys. Just giving me time to get my stuff done would be awesome. That's all.
Okay. So then
Mr. Cooper?
I would put a motion on the table to issue an enforcement order and Herlin will work that up tomorrow for violation of fill in a buffer zone and infringement into the buffer zone.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let me Let's call the roll. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
Commissioner Tannerawat?
Aye.
Commissioner Satterfield? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Kuba.
Thank you so much.
I just realized that there is an enforcement order from May, from before I was here.
Yeah, okay, that's what I said. I thought there was, but
That's-
we can issue a new one
Okay.
and let's
Because
based
it was
on.
requesting that Mr. Kuba file an NOI before June 30th of 2022.
Yeah, so that's already passed. And the other
Okay.
thing is we didn't have the wetland delineation at
We
the time
didn't.
that we did that, so
Okay.
now we can base the new order off of the wetlands delineation that was done.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Kuba, we'll be in touch.
We're gonna work with you,
Thank you.
Thank you, and I will keep her informed about what I'm
Your
doing
schedule.
and the dates and my schedule, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
People waiting virtually, too.
Yeah, thank you. So what's next? Who's waiting virtually?
Woodland Estates, we can skip Mad River Solar. I can give a brief update on Mad River Solar.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know, Joyce.
She's going to recuse herself.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Joyce, we need you to recuse yourself for Woodland Estates.
For Mad River Solar.
Yes.
Oh, Mad River
Is
Solar.
that up next?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
just the update.
Thank you.
A brief, very brief.
Go ahead.
There's a new project manager for this Zero Ashburnham Street Solar, also known as Mad River Solar. Now they're going to be calling themselves Fitchburg Solar, and they are collecting, there was a formal request for public records. They are collecting data from the previous project that was proposed, and they are going to be submitting a new NOI and new plans, but they won't be submitting that until early spring. And that's just a heads up that we have.
Okay.
They've met with the Economic Development Task Force for the city, and they proposed plans. I was not there that day, but what I received from planning was that they are coming forth with the new plans, a new submittal, and I requested that we start from scratch again, and they were okay with that.
All the violations been accommodated and completed?
Yes. And paid for.
Okay.
Do we wait to go on site? Nick has his hand up. Do we wait to go on site to see if there's any flooding issues, or do we wait till there's an order of they come in and present a new plan, or do we monitor it between now and then to find out firsthand what the problems are over time? We'll see it over a site visit.
Yeah.
Right now, we can see it over a period of time.
Commissioner Erickson?
Thank you. I just had one comment. We've been noticing that there's water ponding along the shoulder of Ashburnham Street in the vicinity of the project, and it's becoming an issue with freezing temperatures. It's causing an icing condition, and we're going to need to monitor that over the winter time. So that means additional hours for my staff to make sure that there's salt applied to the roadway in that area. I was wondering if anyone from the commission, Herlin, maybe you've got a contact there. You could reach out to see if they can address that situation.
Yes, I will reach out to them.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's news. That's news. That's an update.
Yeah, but we have time, and over time, things, you can monitor it, you can take a look at the problems like that, and they present us a project plan, and they don't have the benefit of the information that we have ahead of their plan, if we monitor it.
Are you suggesting you're going to monitor it?
I'm suggesting anyone that's driving by or anyone that has an interest or wants to do something like that could step out there. Nick saw it probably from the roadway. That's one thing to address, at a later date. Someone is very close by, could drag any one of us out there to monitor the rearage, because those things ought to be taken care of with that new project plan.
Okay. You got that?
Yes.
Woodland Estates?
We have Commissioner Christian is going to recuse.
Okay. Let the record show that Commissioner Christian is recusing himself. she's here, okay. Ms. Hamburg?
Yep.
We're here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just
Okay.
Frank's hand is up.
Who is Frank?
He's our engineer. He's with Dillis and Roy.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
Go ahead,
Frank McPartland from Dillis and Roy.
Partlin. Go ahead, Mr. McPartland.
This is just for an update.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, sorry. It was just for an update. We did have a site meeting, just to show that all the drains were in place. And we did have a nice site visit a few days ago.
Yes, all the, trying to remember some of the points of concern from the commission members when we had the site walk. All of the drainage has been constructed and connected from where they're doing the work right now at the end of that cul-de-sac all the way to the drainage basin. So there's no situations where the drainage network is disconnected, potentially causing any flooding. There's a flared end section installed at the end of the cul-de-sac instead of a catch basin. I did that so that we could raise up the grade and eliminate some of the hammering that had been causing problems with the zoning board. That situation seems to be working well as intended. There hasn't been any drainage issues up there, especially now that the soil stockpiles have been moved and placed and aren't blocking runoff. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Did the commission have any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a comment on the, Frank, Nick, you were supposed to get copies of that new site plan that was surveyed to indicate whether or not that flared end pipe was at the proper grade. Have you seen that yet? Because we did not. I'd asked for copies sent to Conscom, but Herlin.
We did receive them, and that was my fault. There's something wrong with the technology, and I can't upload his files, but he did send them in Friday afternoon.
Okay. All right. So, Nick, do you have a copy of that, and were you able to establish that the grade is correct there?
Yes, we went out there, and it looks like the grade is correct. We've asked for a few supplemental calculations just to verify that the inlet capacity of that flared end section matches the inlet capacity of the catch basins as originally designed. And my understanding is that information is forthcoming.
Yes, my intent was to get that by the end of the week.
Perfect, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, this is they have modified the plans over what our order of condition was issued on, basically by using this flared end pipe versus the catch basin. But we had determined on the site visit that if all the calculations matched, it really is semantics. If the flow rate that Mr. Erickson agrees with is correct, the elevation is correct, which it appears to be, then we would just file that as a notice of modification with the order of condition.
Okay.
Yes, and we will be doing, once the construction is a little further along at the cul-de-sac, once it's paved and the pads are in, we'll be preparing a full site as-built plan that'll go to the commission to accompany any closeout documents.
Thank you, Mr. McPartland.
Yeah, our site visit did not show that there was substantial change in the plans originally submitted. We just wanted documentation to show that there was a change. And then we'll see, as noted, when the as-built plans come in.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Donnelly.
Hello, Frank McPartland.
Hello. Good to see you again, Mr. Donnelly.
Let's see. So my numbers tell me that the lowest point of that basin ahead of the outflow or inflow, flared end, about 5 inches below the flared end, the lowest point. So I'm looking at, that means to me it would hold about 5 inches of water. Is that significant? And if it is, would it be filled with organic material? Would it be filled with stone? How would you address that?
There will be stone. The finished dressing around the flared end section will there will be stone. That 5-inch kind of sump that's there will act as a sediment trap, and it will catch sediments from that runoff coming onto the property from off-site, and it is included in the operations and maintenance plan for the drainage system to clean that on a regular basis.
Okay, so it was my understanding that there was some discussion with zoning that that basin, et cetera, there's an opportunity for a grantor, grantee for an easement to maintain that northerly most portion of the project. And I would ask Chairwoman, Madam Chair, the Conservation Commission, I think they ought to throw their hat in the ring to be the grantee or grantor of that easement, should that be required of the zoning board.
Joanne, do you want to step in for that?
Well, I don't know what to say. I guess I was told that the Conservation Commission was not interested in being involved, so we have looked elsewhere. I've actually they will be submitting paperwork. So I don't know. Is it something you guys are interested in doing? I mean, we do have someone who is an abutter that is interested in doing it. It would be the Parks Commission.
The City and Parks Commission has voted unanimously that they would accept. They would accept the landscape easement.
Well, my comment again was to Madam Chair, and I wanted the Conservation Commission to roundly endorse accepting that. In as much as the water from there goes directly to the detention basin at the southerlymost end of the system, and that is jurisdictional. So whatever enters that pipe gets into that and gets ultimately into the brook. So if we had some control at the headwaters, I think that would be a prudent thing for the CONSCOM to consider. Regarding any other party, I thought it had to be no financial interest, and to my way of looking at land, any abutter would have a financial interest in that. Any abutter would have a financial interest, but the CONSCOM does not.
I believe that the language from the ZBA was a nonprofit or an abutter.
Yep. Yeah, so they and it was more of a landscape agreement than a conservation, easement. I don't know. It's called the landscape agreement, and it could be an abutter or a nonprofit organization.
No problem. I'm again. If the CONSCOM would recognize that we have an interest in it, if the CONSCOM would recognize that we have an interest in it, then perhaps whoever shared that the city had no interest in it would change their attitude. That's all. But again, I'm looking for the CONSCOM now to say, do we have an interest? If we do, fine. If we don't, that's fine.
Ms. Hamburg, did you say the Parks Department was interested?
Yes.
Yes.
Herlene, can you reach out to them and just see what their interest is?
During the site walk, though, I clearly remember Mrs. Hamburg stating that she was going to reach out to the North County Land Trust, which is not the Parks.
I've reached out to multiple people, Harlan. The Parks Commission was one of the abutters, and I did talk to Northland, and they are in the process of reviewing it, and I hope to get something back from them next week. But they haven't given me an answer one way or another, and I need to have options sooner than later, so I'm doing my homework.
Okay, Commissioner Erickson?
Thank you. I can just help provide some additional information. So the Parks Department, under the care and supervision of the Board of Parks Commissioners, owns a tract of land adjacent to Woodland Estates. I forget exactly how many acres. I think it's 32.8 or so. And it's preserved as forest land. And my understanding is there's some history there. It was one of the first quote unquote forests in the United States. So there's some historical significance there. So last night at the Board of Parks Commissioners meeting, they voted to approve executing a contract with Woodland Estates for what's called a landscape easement. But the verbiage of the easement essentially stated that the City of Fitchburg, under the care of the Parks Board, would have an easement on the property at Woodland Estates with the requirement to preserve it as forest land in perpetuity. So that agreement was approved by the Parks Board to sign and execute pending review of the city solicitor. But I'm sure if the Conservation Commission has a vested interest and would prefer to take ownership of that easement, I could approach the Parks Board and see if they'd be amenable to voting to rescind that offer and allow the Conservation Commission to be the stewards of that land. I think either way, it's an entity of the city that would be taking control of that landscaping easement. So either way, it would serve the same purpose. But that's entirely up to the commission, and I'm happy to support the decision either way.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. I think I will remind us that our mission is conservation of the land, where the Parks Commission mission is preservation of the land. And just going to put that out there.
And I will say to that, you snooze, you lose. And if we snoozed and they were ahead of us, you lose. However, notwithstanding, would the Conservation Commission and those in attendance tonight endorse accepting being the grantee or grantor of the land? It's not our decision whether we are or not. It's just, will we accept it? It's the decision that will be made by the owner of the land and the zoning board. They'll make the decision if it works. I just want to throw a hat in the ring a day late and a dollar short.
I think that's what it is. Mr. McPartland?
Yes, I just wanted to reflect that that Joanne does have a deadline to have this recorded, basically the end of the year. So there is some urgency to get the easement filed. We're trying not to have any loose ends with our deadlines with the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was several for the end of the year and then several in next year, and the ownership of this area was one of the ones for the end of 2023.
For conservation purposes, I would fully endorse that the Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would.
Be amenable to accepting the property.
I would.
Are you looking at me?
I am. 3 people have expressed interest in it.
I think I gave you my opinion when I said the Parks Commission's job is to preserve the land, and the Conservation Commission's job is to conserve the natural resources. So I'm going to disagree with you guys, but that's okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
But do we offer Ms. Hamburg the ability to say she could offer the land to conservation?
she can do, it's her land, she can offer anything, it just has to be accepted by zoning. And she shared that she was under the impression that the city didn't want it. But I wanted to come in tonight and say, well, a portion of the city does want it, Conscom. We're not going to get that. But contrary to what the city said, or what Joanne said earlier, the city does want it. The park department is a portion of the city. So which is it? And I guess it's the parks. And I guess the city does want it via the parks. And the Conservation Commission just didn't readily endorse expressing interest in being a grantee, grantor. That's fine.
And
no problem.
If I may, some of the initial discussions was for a small area around the cul-de-sac. One of the things that Joanne did to kind of sweeten the offer to other groups, and I'm sorry if this wasn't communicated to the commissioner earlier, was it was increased to basically the perimeter of the property. It's approximately 8 acres now, wrapping around essentially the limit of disturbance. So it encompasses the limit of clearing, it encompasses the wetlands at the far end of the property. So there's a good amount of, it's not just the small area at the end of the cul-de-sac right now. So that, if that changes anything, I just wanted to bring that up.
Sounds like the whole watershed, but the Conservation Commission doesn't want to
The undeveloped portion of the watershed, yes.
Well, the whole construction watershed, but the word preservation and conservation are in conflict with our interests. No problem. Like I said, you snooze, you lose, and we weren't at the table. Although we were never approached, and the park department was.
Well, we were, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just raise my hand or whatever, but yeah, like I said, I was under the impression that the city solicitor said the Conservation Commission wasn't interested in it. But if you are interested, then I could put you in, we could talk about it.
We found out tonight we weren't.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I think we're going to thank you for your time, Mr. McPartland and Ms. Hamburg, and move forward.
You're welcome. And if you have any other issues with the files, please reach out to me, Herlin, and I might be able to adjust the format or anything like that, or just get you hard copies.
Thank you. It's something with the city malware. Certain documents
won't let them load. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been there.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So
thank you very much.
Moving forward to 46 Sheldon Road, can we have a brief update?
Yes, very brief. This is going to be probably one of the first things that we are going to reinstate in our Violations Commission subcommittee, because 46 Sheldon has recently been sold, and that deed was registered last month. So we will be reaching out to Mr. Nieves to set up a meeting with him and discuss remediation of that violation.
Okay, thank you. 71 Wachusett Street.
We still haven't received anything from this property owner. I know that during some sort of last meeting, a abutter reached out and said that there's a trust who's in charge, but it's not recorded in the registry of deeds. There's no way for me to access the trust, so we are at a standstill.
And at this point, the property has been remediated to where it's not unsafe any longer, but at some point there is going to need to be repair to the driveway and the garage area that washed out. If building department then asks for that to be done, they're going to have to come to Conscom to do that. So at that point, we will have access to whoever is in charge of the property. For now, there really is not a violation that we're chasing, or it's just that if any more work is done there, they have to work with us.
Okay, moving forward, we've got the DPW wastewater Birch Brook broken manhole. There is a note here that was submitted to the commission. Do you want to speak to that?
Commissioner Christian and I, originally we went out and looked at this because this was done on an emergency basis because the manhole had broken and there was sewage discharged into Birch Brook. DPW and the sewer department, water and sewer department, brought in a contractor. I have to say, when Commissioner Christian and I, and he can comment also, it looked really good. It was fixed. We went over with the contractor. They needed to pick up their cribbing, do a little bit of cleanup around the manhole, fix the backyard for the gentleman that allowed access there, and do some, general seeding and stabilization. We don't know if that's been done yet, but it looked really good last time we were out there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Christian, did you have any comments? Okay.
I can do a site walk or reach out to Kenny DuPont. And
Yeah,
see.
just reach out to Ken and just ask him, because we were out there and it looked really good.
Okay.
And if he says the contract is done, one of us can just take a ride by and see if there was any questions, but I don't anticipate there will be.
Okay.
So we do have a forest cutting plan on the agenda. Are we still within the time period for this one?
No, I believe that's gone past. We did verify, Commissioner Christian spoke to Chris Capone. He made sure that we were made aware of it based on the fact of the Oak Hill solar array, but this is not anything to do with that parcel. This is a parcel on the back side, on the opposite side of Oak Hill. They're coming in from Fifth Mass Turnpike. So the one thing that we would have been concerned with is if this were the solar parcel, but it is not. And they're under 61, so it's acceptable to cut, should they choose.
And it looks like it's a long-term management plan?
Yes, it's...
Long-term, Chapter 61B, recreation.
Okay.
Nick,
I think there's somebody in the
Nick is still up there. Is it a clear cut? Is it a selective cut?
Selective.
It's selective.
Okay. And is there sewerage in, storm sewer in Oak Hill Road, Nick?
I believe the Oak Hill area has not been separated. There's still a large portion of combined sewer in the lower portion of Oak Hill, so to speak. So that would be north of Franklin Road. So it's kind of counterintuitive. It's
My thought was
the lower portion, but it's north.
My thought was it's the height of the watershed on Shea Street. So while it is on the other side of Oak Hill Road, it's still uphill from Oak Hill Road. So storm sewer would separate that runoff from the new forest cutting plan. And if it's selective, it's probably not.
I think.
Do we have an audience member who'd like to speak?
Chuck Warner, 1138 Oak Hill Road. I've been walking in the area there for the last 23 years. I know the terrain. None of the cutting, I've seen the flag, how the cutting area has been flagged. I've talked to, is it Commissioner Capone? Anyway, with Chris Capone, and corresponded with Herlin. There's no drainage whatsoever to Oak Hill Road from the area that's going to be logged. It is all the drain, and in fact, there does not appear to be any significant drainage that would go down the Franklin Road side. The cutting area is entirely within the watershed that comes down the stream that goes under Fifth Mass Turnpike and then ends up at James Pond after winding around south of Fifth Mass Turnpike. My initial concerns were over erosion and the wetlands there, which, contrary to what you said, there is a permanent wetland on the high ground there, short of the summit of Oak Hill, which Chris Capone said he had flagged and was okay with. as I said, my concerns were about about erosion, and we won't know anything there until we see what the road construction, what's done for constructing the logging road, which will come in from Fifth Mass Turnpike.
Yes.
That would remain the main source of concern because it is directly adjacent to a permanent stream that runs down behind from the topmost green of the country club down to Franklin Road behind the old barn there. So that's
The chicken barn, is that what?
right.
They're going
Yes.
through it? or-
Directly west of that, and the staging area, the loading area will be directly behind the barn, as I understand it. My concerns are two. One is just that people are aware of the wetland and what's there, and the other is what recourse is there if the logging firm that contracts for this doesn't follow the plan. The plan itself is exactly what what I'd have done if I wanted to log that property. It's not. They're leaving a lot of old growth, mature trees behind. They're not coming close to clear cutting anywhere. And it's all, as I say, it's in the area that doesn't have major erosion risks for the Franklin Road side going down to the river. So, again, Ms. Jamie, have you been up there?
I have not.
Okay. I know Ross at the Country Club would make himself available, and I'd be happy to take anybody up there. But at the height of land, there's the summit of Oak Hill, and then there's a broad level area that goes from the topmost green down, coming around to the east and south of the summit, which is damp year-round, and there is a permanent wetland in a depression at the top there. There do not appear to be a lot of trees being cut there. I just need to make sure that you all are aware of what's there before signing off on something sight unseen. Chris Capone was happy with what was there. He acknowledges the problems with any cutting plan, which is how do you remediate? If they don't do what they say they're going to do, what do you have for recourse?
Take this.
I think I'm sorry. Before I think we've had the conversation where I've explained to. I don't know if Chuck, Mr. Warner. I'm sorry. I don't know if I've had the conversation directly with you, but with some abutters and how we get these plans and they're approved by Mass DCR, and.
Yes, we can't stop. These are really a courtesy that they are sent to the CONSCOM for a couple of things. If they went to cut the solar part of the Oak Hill property, there is other construction or other plans in place. There would be different regulations that might apply. If the parcel that they want to cut, even though there are wetlands on it, as long as the state forester approves the cut because it fits within his regulations, we have no authority to change his distinguishing.
The statute requires that you and the forestry are notified at the same time in advance of the plan, and that that your commission has the right to inform the forestry folks of your concerns in this matter. And that's where we are now. I understand you don't have a veto on this, but this is the window for comment. And that's why I want to make sure that
the window right now, I believe,
the window's
has
closed.
passed. We get 10 days.
Yeah, we only have 10 days.
So I think this might be a discussion that we could have outside of the public hearing.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Our recourse is that if there's a violation, we document the violation and work with them to mitigate.
Who is the responsible party? Is it the Oak Hill Country Club who submitted the plan, or is it the timber company that they contract with?
No, it would be Oak Hill, because Oak Hill owns the property.
So
And then they would have to go after the forester for damaging some property.
Well, or cutting beyond the plan. I mean, that.
Yes.
Right.
So if
Right.
there's.
But you have to understand, when you're cutting on 61 or 61B, those are long-term forestry cutting plans. And
Right.
they give them certain latitude in what they can do, even in a wetland. The way they cross it is completely different than if you're clear cutting for a housing development.
No, I understood that.
So they don't make you do the crossings the way that you would on a clear cut. They can go in, down and dirty, cut it, they fall under agriculture.
Right.
So we have 10 days to act on it, and I have great confidence in Chris Capone getting back to us with concerns. He signs off on it, he approves the plan. It's really above our scope.
Okay. So if the commission has no stake in the existence, the condition, or any possible restoration of the wetlands that are there on the
He
property.
can disturb them, he
then
can
it's
run
moot.
over them. They'll grow back.
Right.
This is basically just a courtesy to us on a long-term plan.
Okay. So inasmuch as this.
He goes by the best cutting practices, so he has his own.
No, I understand. The question is when the best cutting practices don't happen. When Oak Hill logged the northern end of their property, things went much farther than they were expected to. There was clear cutting, and
then that would be up to the state forester. It certainly isn't us.
Well, their hands are rather tied as well in terms of what they.
He said establish baseline parameters, and if they exceed them, we know. If we don't know whether they have exceeded them or not, so bring it to our attention now. My bigger concern is for us to bank the information. When they do that cut up there, we just permitted Fifth Mass Pike, 4 houses or 2 houses on Fifth Mass Pike, and there's a perennial stream running next to it. That's the recipient of that forest.
Exactly.
So if we bank that information and we make a decision down the road, we make it based on past practice, what we've seen, what worked, what didn't work. That's what I care about now about the hill. And that's why I cared about it. If it crossed Oak Hill Road, it goes to Shea Street. Now it's going down to Fifth Mass Pike. What are the results at the end of that change in hillside? That's all. But as I said, it's a selective cut. It's probably a good thing, not a bad thing. But the baseline parameters, here's the wetland. Did they fall within the scope of the forest cutting plan? You want to make sure that we know
Well,
where we started.
as I say, I want to know what recourse there is. And Chris Capone and people at DEP also acknowledge that the problem with this being an agricultural activity is that it is entirely concerned with the bounds of the property and the buffer zones
Not as much
around the
within,
property. It has absolutely there's nothing in the law and nothing in the statutes about what happens when the water leaves the property. So erosion from that property is not handled. My initial concern here was that they were going to be cutting on the Franklin Road side, on the watershed down to the Nashua itself, which could have major repercussions because of additional water load in the Nashua, whatever garbage is underneath the silt behind the dams, and whatever else in a 100-year rain event.
You're up there.
That's not. No, exactly. The water in this case is going in the other direction. It's going to be in that floodplain there behind the new houses, next to the. I forget what's the
Balata?
Well, the body of water west of No Town that's on
Snow Mill, Mountain Meadow.
Well, whatever the ponds that end up going to James Pond and
Whitman River.
Sawmill Pond.
Sawmill Pond, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay.
Thank you, and I'm sorry you had to wait this whole time.
Okay, I didn't know that it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, and we haven't come up with a remedy for that yet, is we get a plan and we only get 10 days. Well,
Yeah, don't get me started.
and we have 30 days between meetings, so it's sort of
Well,
like,
exactly.
it's long gone past before we kind of get input.
If you all have, I've been in the process of putting together suggested guidelines for DEP for forestry on these, because obviously, yes, conservation commissions meet once a month at best.
Yeah.
And then all kinds of other things are permitted under the agricultural understanding of this, and the things that aren't agricultural, like harvesting stone walls. There aren't stone walls in this here, but when you do harvest stone walls, you cause additional wear, you need more roads, more wear and tear because of the weight and the different equipment there. So trying to put together something. So when you're doing a forestry plan like this, there would be a warranty of agricultural use, and in the process, you'd say, I'm not going to take out stone walls. This isn't going to cause drainage onto other property. I don't anticipate building housing here in the next 5 years, or else. But it's toothless at this point because of the agricultural exception. People can say we don't want to build houses, and Oak Hill had hoped to build housing there. I can only assume that on that level area, I can only assume that they've realized that it doesn't drain and that it would be a developer's nightmare to try. But that was in the air 2 years ago now. So.
All right, I think we're all set, so thank you.
Mr. Warner, please, you can continue this discussion with Herlin. We'd like to hear your...
Just once the meeting is done, we can kind of touch base.
If you'd like to talk around that and see what's what. It's beautiful. And Ross, he's done a really good job of tagging the trees to be cut and also steering clear of the areas that have no reason to be cut. So pitch pines, old hickories, things that sorry, I'm blanking on the, anyway, some of the trash trees that are still old growth have been left. And part of my concern is just want to make sure that the loggers don't go out there and say, it's a pitch pine, and take it off. So, we know the work they've done up at Flat to restore that, and it'd be a shame to lose it from this property trees.
Thank you so much.
Erickson? Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I agree with Mr. Warner's assessment of kind of the watershed delineations from Oak Hill down to receiving water bodies. So to the southwest, you have that area of the hill draining down to James Pond and just downstream. To the northwest, you've got that area of the hill draining down to the North Nashua, Whitman River area. To the northeast, you have the area draining down to like northern Shea Street, northern Oak Hill Road, and ultimately the Nashua. And then southeast, you have the area draining down to Shea Street and then on to No Town Reservoir. So there's a few different receiving water bodies, depending on which section of the Oak Hill property, quote unquote, that you're looking at. And this section that's proposed to be logged definitely goes down towards the James Ponds, North Nashua River area along the west side of Oak Hill Road. And we essentially have runoff issues and groundwater breakout kind of on all sides of Oak Hill in general, like Oak Hill proper. So, we've got major water issues on Franklin Road west of Oak Hill. We've got major water issues on Franklin Road north of Oak Hill. We've got major waters to the east of Oak Hill on Shea Street. And we've got major runoff heading down towards Fifth Mass Turnpike and ultimately onto No Town Reservoir. So Oak Hill itself sheds a ton of water. Bedrock elevations are very near surface elevations, so you get a lot of groundwater breakout and you don't get much infiltration. So on DPW's side, we see issues on our roadways and with private property on all sides of Oak Hill in that loop encompassed by Oak Hill Road, Fifth Mass Turnpike, and Franklin Road. And Shea Street, and I would agree that any foresting in this area is going to contribute to that problem. And if there's any opportunity for us to push back or comment on our concerns to the forester that's planning to do this work, or comment on this forest cutting plan, that would be in our best interest, for sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson.
Madam Chair, I think the rest of what we have on the agenda are a few items that are going to move to the violation subcommittee, so we'll report on those later if we need to. We're,
Okay.
I think, complete for the night.
Well, we do have the matter of the minutes for the regular meeting of the February 1st, 2023 meeting. Can I have a motion and a second to accept those minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let the record show everyone was in favor. Can I have a
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So adjourned.
Oh,
Thank you
anytime.
very much.
Second.